This morning on our Saturday session, indie music legend Liz Phair. She rocked the music patriarchy back in the 1990s, and in her new memoir, she describes what it was like to be a young female musician in a male-dominated industry. She'll perform for us in just a minute, but first, her conversation with Anthony Mason.
Then I woke up in your arms, and almost immediately I felt sorry.
It's been more than a quarter century since Liz Phair released her landmark debut, Exile in Guyville, a sexually frank stab at the musical patriarchy that many rank among the greatest albums of the 90s.
Whatever happened to a boyfriend?
How do you feel about that first record all these years later?
The time and distance makes it much easier to embrace. So I guess I like it a lot more now.
What would you have disliked about it?
Back in the day,
Yeah.
it made me feel so self-conscious. I felt inadequate. Like I felt like when people heard the record, they would hear my awkward voice, my awkward, warbly voice.
But that's not what people heard at the time.
It wasn't, but it mystified me. I'd walk around going like, what is this magic trick?
Why can't I breathe whenever I think about you?
She'd perform the trick again with hits like Why Can't I? But Phair has had long periods when she slipped in and out of rock stardom.
Which is indicative of what?
I'm uncomfortable with being the star, kind of.
You are.
Little bit. I ham it up. You know how you overcompensate when you're uncomfortable about something? But I am like a bookish, nerdish introvert
Yeah.
who just doesn't want to be invisible or irrelevant.
The bookish singer has now written her own book, Horror Stories, a magically lyrical memoir that is also searingly honest. My conscience, Phair writes, is a fantastic prosecutor.
What was the hardest part to write about?
Probably the affair I had at the end of my marriage, or the Me Too chapter, the hashtag chapter, about the sexual harassment that I've experienced in my life.
I've had a president of a record label show me pornographic picture books in his office, she writes. Another label head tells her to let radio programmers feel me up a little because it would be good for my career. A third label exec offers her $5,000 a month to be his live-in mistress.
You've probably never done something like that before, sort of added it all up.
I had never added it all up. I had never even in therapy, I'd never even talked about it to anyone.
So how did it feel to write about it?
Horrible.
Really?
Horrible. I hated that chapter. I don't like to see myself as a victim. I mean, I'm almost kind of tearing up right now because I don't like to feel like a victim. I feel sorry for that girl that I was. I wish I could go back and help her out or hold her hand or yell at someone for her. If you write it down, it goes into that page.
Yeah.
And some part of it leaves you. Not all of it, but like it's a relief.
Phair also describes a painful breakup about a decade ago with a longtime boyfriend who had a baby with another woman.
That sounded just devastating.
It was. It changed the trajectory of my life. That breakup destroyed my ability to trust myself. And so I pulled out of dating, and I just kind of became paralyzed, I guess.
For how long?
I'm still working on it.
In the aftermath, Phair focused on raising her son, Nick.
Then when I wanted to get back into music after he went to college, I didn't know who I was. I didn't know who Liz Phair was.
So what did you think had happened to Liz Phair?
She seemed way cooler than I was and way tougher.
How did you find her again?
Honestly, playing live. Playing live.
Almost felt bad. You said that I should call you up, but
It's scary. You get that adrenaline rush.
Right. And if you pull it off.
If you pull it off, you feel like a living god. You're just like invincible.
thank you guys.
Fabulous.